On the cool, tense evening of April 18, 1775, the city of Boston sat under British military occupation. Redcoat patrols moved through narrow streets, lanterns flickering off their polished muskets. For months, the British Army had watched the restless colonies with growing suspicion. Now General Thomas Gage prepared to strike. His target was the town of Concord, where colonial patriots had secretly stored weapons, gunpowder, and supplies. If the British arrived before the colonists could react, the rebellion might collapse before it truly began. But Boston was full of Patriot spies. Long before the soldiers assembled to march, word reached the Sons of Liberty. And among them was Paul Revere, a skilled silversmith, engraver, and part-time courier for the resistance. Revere wasn't simply a brave rider. He was part of a coordinated intelligence network, stretching from Boston to Lexington and beyond. Earlier that evening, Revere met with two Patriot leaders, Dr. Joseph Warren and Samuel Adams, discussing rumors of a British movement. They feared the army also planned to arrest Adams and John Hancock, who were hiding in Lexington. A warning had to reach them before dawn, otherwise both men could be captured, and the rebellion's most important political voices silenced. Knowing that British patrols might seal the city, Revere arranged a backup signal. Two trusted patriots, Robert Newman and Captain John Poling, Jr., would hang lanterns in the tower of the Old North Church. One lantern meant British troops were marching by land. Two meant they would row across the Charles River by sea. This wasn't a signal to Revere himself. He was already leaving the city, but a message to riders waiting across the river in Charlestown. It was an early form of mass communication, brilliantly simple and nearly impossible for the British to detect. When British troops finally began moving toward the water, Newman climbed the church tower and held up two lanterns. The light flashed briefly across the city rooftops. Across the river, Patriot watchers understood the message instantly. The British route was confirmed. Meanwhile, Revere quietly boarded a small rowboat at Boston's north end. Slipping past the British warship HMS Somerset, he crossed the dark Charles River and reached Charlestown, where a fast horse awaited him. Local patriots already knew from the lanterns that danger was coming. When Revere mounted his horse and began his ride, history was beginning to move. Contrary to popular legend, Revere did not shout, "The British are coming." Such a cry would have been dangerous and inaccurate. Many colonists still identified as British, and shouting openly would have alerted British patrols. Instead, Revere used the phrase, "The regulars are out." This was the correct term for British soldiers. As Revere galloped through the countryside, he stopped at nearly every house. Didn't deliver one dramatic warning, he sparked a chain reaction. Within minutes of his arrival in each village, local militia captains were waking their men. Church bells rang, drums beat through the night, and riders launched in all directions. Revere's mission wasn't about speed alone. It was about spreading a message across an entire region. By midnight, Revere reached Lexington, where Hancock and Adams were staying at the home of Jonas Clark. Revere burst into the house and announced that British troops were marching. Hancock reportedly tightened his coat and declared he was ready to fight. Adams urged him not to be reckless. Revere had completed the first part of his mission, but the night wasn't over. After a brief rest, Revere joined two other riders, William Dawes and Dr. Samuel Prescott. Together, they rode toward Concord to warn the militia guarding colonial military stores. But outside Lexington, they encountered a British patrol. Dawes managed to escape, but soon lost his horse. Prescott leaped his horse over a stone wall and disappeared into the woods, successfully reaching Concord. Revere, however, was captured. British officers questioned him at gunpoint. Revere confidently told them the countryside was already alarmed. Thousands of armed colonists would soon rise. This wasn't a bluff. The officers, worried and pressed for time, eventually released him, but kept his horse. Revere walked back toward Lexington on foot. Arriving just in time to hear the opening shots of the Battle of Lexington, the first clash of the American Revolution, Revere's ride didn't end like the legend, but its impact was enormous. Thanks to the alarm he helped ignite, hundreds of militia gathered before the British reached Concord. Hours later, the British Army, overwhelmed by colonial resistance, retreated back to Boston under constant fire. The midnight ride was not a solo act of heroism, it was a network, a system, a carefully organized resistance. Paul Revere was the most famous part of it, but not the only one. His ride helped turn a tense night into the dawn of revolution.